If you haven't done any pruning on your shrubs yet, it's time to start thinking about it. Many summer blooming shrubs actually bloom on new wood, and therefore they really benefit from a good trimming in the spring. These include things like butterfly bush, your Buddleia, Spirea, and also your smooth and panicle hydrangeas. So I'm going to go around and do some pruning today, and hopefully I can give you a few tips on how to handle your own shrubs. This is a pugster butterfly bush. It's one of the smaller types of butterfly bushes, and I really do like this one. They are considered essentially sterile, so they're not going to reseed all over your garden. And they don't grow terribly big, but they flower profusely. Now this one has already been pruned, and you can see that it has been pruned back to some nice, fresh, strong growth. Before I pruned it, it was quite a bit larger, and it had not only the old flowers from last year, but you could see all of the excess branches on it. Now the whole idea with pruning is to try to be able to create more branches for more growth when you have a plant like this that just blooms on new growth. So typically, wherever you cut it, wherever you prune it, new branches are going to come out. So where you see this new growth, these are actually going to form additional branches, and that is where your flowers are going to come from. Now this is a Miss Molly butterfly bush. This is one that gets larger. It probably gets to around 5 feet tall or so, whereas the pugster is a 3-footer. This has also been pruned already, and you can see that there's quite a bit of growth on the bottom, and there's also new growth coming off of these branches. Once again, I cut it back to some strong growth, and it looks a little bare at this point, but you'll be amazed at what happens. In fact, here's all the trimmings. You can see how much I took off of it. Pruning it, though, is going to mean better flowers and better flower production, or more flower production, over this coming summer. Here is another Miss Molly butterfly bush, another one that gets, maybe somewhere between 5 and 6 feet tall. I have 3 of these simply because I really like the color. But this one has not been pruned back yet, and it also is bending over because the snow really pulled it down in the winter storm, so I need to correct that too. But I'm going to prune that one now. Here is the after picture. I removed about 50% of its height. I took off all of the dead branches. Because this plant had been pretty much flattened in the winter storms and was leaning forward, I did put a stake on it, which hopefully in another month or so I will remove, but just to get it started. But as you can see, what I did was I cut everything back to some nice strong leaves, areas with a few strong buds coming out. Now these of course will end up forming the new branches. Now here in the crescent bed, I have several different types of hydrangea, and this one is a smooth hydrangea or hydrangea arborescens. This is actually an invincible spirit, and this one has not been cleaned up yet. And you can see that I've got a lot of bent and dead stuff in here. You can see that the old flowers are still on it. I'm going to be cutting this one back by, a solid third. And I'm going to be removing anything that's dead. And I'm also likely going to be removing anything that is really bending down toward the ground, just to try to shape it up. Because the flowers do get heavy on these. They are heavy producers during the summer, and the flowers can really weigh the plant down, especially if you have a good rainstorm. So pruning can be beneficial in a number of different ways. Now, I mentioned in the pruning video that I did last spring that everywhere that you cut back a branch, you get 2 or more branches. And this is a good example. In fact, there's 2 examples right here. And you can see how I cut these branches last year, and now they produce 2 more branches. And 2 more branches means 2 more potential places to produce flowers. I think it's time to get started on this invincible spirit. And I'm going to end up taking, I think, quite a bit off of it this year. Okay, I'm done with this one. And I think you can see that I was not at all shy about how much I took off of it. Normally I take off a good third of this shrub every year. This year I took off closer to a half, simply because there was a lot of winter damage, a lot of broken and bent branches. You can see how much I actually removed. But this plant is going to be so much happier, and I guarantee you it's going to bloom beautifully this summer. And of course, I always give them a good dose of fertilizer after they've been pruned. Now here is another smooth hydrangea that really is going to need a lot of work. This is an incredible. And again, you can see all the dead flowers on it. And this one really split in the middle with all of the snow this year. So I'm going to have to do a lot of work to get this poor guy back into shape. But it's all good. The incredible hydrangea has been pruned, and you can see I wasn't shy again about what I took off of it, but it has definitely been cleaned up. There are some stakes around it, some metal posts, because last year I had put the stakes on it so that I would help hold it up. The flowers get so big on this and they get so heavy that again you get a good rainstorm and it pulls them right down. Now what's interesting about this one is that we've got a couple of plants growing off of the edge. There's one here and there's another one here. This is where branches had laid down and then rooted. So these are candidates to be pulled out and put somewhere else. This smaller Invincible Ruby got the same treatment. Now the tough stuff hydrangea are mountain hydrangea or hydrangea serrata. Now these I did a really good pruning on last year. And I can see that there's some dead in here. So I am going to take all of that out. I'll also take out any of the old flowers at the tips. But I suspect that these are not going to need too much work this season. I've got some hydrangea here in the front yard. The one in the corner by the house is actually a Nico Blue. Now this is Hydrangea macrophylla, and this is one that absolutely blooms on old wood. So you really want to be careful with those, how much you take off of them. I already came in early in the spring, and anything that was obviously broken from the winter I took off, as well as the old flowers. But I can see that we still have some dead branches in here that are going to need to be removed. This is one that I usually put some stakes on each year too, because again the flowers can get very, very heavy. And I think this year, since there was so little winter kill, I'm probably going to get a lot of flowers on it, which I'm very happy about. But those flowers can kind of drag down the branches of the plants, especially if you have some heavy rain. So I like to put a little bit of staking on it, simply to make sure that the branches don't break at any point during the summer. I had a similar issue with my Endless Summer hydrangea. This is an Endless Summer Blushing Bride, and you can see that there are a lot of dead sticks in it. Now I already cleaned up the original Endless Summer hydrangea, and you can see that I pulled a lot of material out of them. And now they look a lot cleaner. You don't see all of the dead wood. And while it may not seem critical to remove the dead wood, if you leave too much in there, eventually you may have some issues with the new growth at the bottom trying to work its way up, and it just looks better. Now here is one of the hydrangea that we moved this spring. This is the Let's Dance Blue Jangles. And you can see that it's got some nice green growth coming out on it. In fact, even on a number of the branches, we've got some nice growth coming out high up on the branches. Now, because we moved it this spring, I'm not going to go in and do much other pruning on it. I think once the leaves really fully come out, if I see branches that are completely dead, I'll deal with them. But having been moved so early in the spring, it should be fine, but potentially there will be some stress and there will be some additional dead on it. Here is a Hydrangea macrophylla Lady in Red. I have not touched this one yet, and you can see that there is a lot of dead growth at the bottom, although we have lots of nice growth out on the tips. So the winter was not bad to it, but some of the tips have got dead branches on the edges. Some of them still have flowers, and all of that I'm going to be removing. Now, a couple of others down here I already took care of. And you can see a little bit of the difference between them. So here is a hydrangea macrophylla that looked very similar just a week ago. And if you'll notice, I've really cleaned up the base of it. Personally, I don't like it when there are branches that are laying on the ground. I think that they're just not as healthy. Sometimes they end up re-rooting down there. So I tend to clean it up all along the edges. And then you'll notice that the tips do not have any dead growth on them or old flowers. I've already taken care of this. Here is the lady in red after pruning. And you can see that there's nothing dead looking at the bottom other than the legs of some of the branches, which actually aren't dead, they just don't have leaves on them. And it's been cleaned and shaped up. It's going to be a much happier shrub this year. This bloomstruck hydrangea also got a haircut, but being a hydrangea macrophylla that blooms on both old and new wood, the only thing I did was go through and remove anything that was dead. Here is a panicle hydrangea that I also pruned. This is a little quick fire. And although it looks fairly bare up at the top right now, never fear, there are new buds forming. Here's a bobo hydrangea that got a good haircut. And same thing, it looks a little drastic right now, but I guarantee you that this plant is going to bud out beautifully, have lots of new growth, and everywhere there's new growth, there will be flowers. Oak leaf hydrangeas bloom on old wood, so I try not to do much to them at all other than removing dead wood. Now here we have some Spirea. The Spirea that are directly in front of me right now have actually been pruned already. And you can see that I cut them back. Now I cut these back significantly. And to give you an idea, here's one up above them that hasn't been pruned yet. And you can see how sort of wild and wrangly it looks. But Spirea is another plant that blooms on new growth. So pruning it not only improves the shape of the shrub, but it also means that the plant is going to grow lots of new growing tips that will then later flower. So this Spirea up here, and I've got a couple of them over here. I'm going to be pruning those today. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again next time on Gardening Genes. In the meantime, have a wonderful day in the garden.